All right, I was like, good morning. Wow. Baruch Hashem. Okay, it's such a zechus to be able to begin the last half of Basra. Begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning's shir. To thank our annual TALMUD TORAH sponsor for Tafshin Pei Hey, the Tilson Mishpach of Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Naftali WhatsApped me yesterday saying that for today, we're going to change the sponsorship in Yahrzeit Hashem as a zechus for all of those who have toiled in all of the Bavas and all of those Baruch Hashem who are zocha to bring Basra to a beautiful and sweet and holy close. And Yahrzeit Hashem b'shah tov u'mitzlachos. Begin Mesechus Sanhedrin tomorrow b'shah tov u'mitzlachos. In that zechus, Yahrzeit Hashem, we should all encounter incredible bracha, hatzlacha, shefa, and mazel for ourselves, for our mishpachos, and for all of Am Yisroel. Our TALMUD TORAH sponsors for the month of Kislev, Josh and Becca Friedman, in commemoration of the Yahrzeit of Josh's father, Yisroel Yehuda, HaRav Chaim Rephael, and for the safe return of our hostages and the security of our soldiers, Sammy and Malka Esterson, in memory of their parents, Yitzchak Laib ben Aharon HaKohen, Sarah Rachel bas Baruch Avraham, and Hinda bas Henech Efrayim, and in memory of their dear friend, Naftali Gordon, Naftali Yonah Hy, Hashem Yikom Damo, Ben Beatrice, Miriam, and Danielle Yigal. And today, Daf Yomi is sponsored by the Friends of Maishi Garden, wishing him a tremendous mazel tov on being Messiah Shas with the completion of Mesechus Bava Basra. The Daf is also sponsored by the Friends of Zevi Daniel, wishing him a tremendous mazel tov on being Messiah Shas with the completion of Bava Basra. The Daf is also sponsored today by Zevi Daniel in completion of his Daf Yomi cycle, and with tremendous gratitude to the shir, specifically his Daf brothers, David Flum and David Schwartz, without whom this incredible pursuit would have only been a dream. As in, he would still be asleep. Incredible. So I'll say, so beautiful. So first of all, a mazel tov to Reb Maishi, a mazel tov to Reb Zevi. What a zechus. What a zechus to be Messiah Shas. Incredible. I will say, by the way, I just want to tell you something also. If you're being Messiah Shas in Bava Basra, what does that mean? It means you picked up in the middle of a cycle. So sometimes, one of the most difficult things is to kind of start something when everyone else is into it. And it's so easy to say, I'll catch you later. It's Bava Basra. What's another, 2 years? I'll just wait until Mesechus Brachas. And I think Reb Zevi started not even at the beginning of Basra, right? But like a week before Bava Basra was over. With a week left to Bava Basra. So I'll say I want to thank Reb Zevi and Reb Maishi for just giving us such a beautiful life musar. That when a beautiful opportunity comes your way, don't wait until the opportune time to jump into it. But take it. Mitzvah habali yadecha al tachmisana. An opportunity to learn, an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to broaden your spiritual horizons comes. Okay, it would be great if I started at the beginning of this, a little bit later, a little bit earlier. When it presents itself, take it and jump into it. Zevi Maishi, much mazel, much bracha, and much incredible hatzlacha on this accomplishment, and you should be zocha. And Yahrzeit Hashem to Messiah Shas, many times over, you should be zocha and Yahrzeit Hashem to broaden your spiritual horizons for many years to come, and this zechus of this Siyum HaShash, Yahrzeit Hashem be a source of mazel and bracha and simcha and hatzlacha for your mishpachas for many generations to come. Amen. Incredible. All right, I will say with that, let's begin. Right? There's no opportunity today to finish the rest of the daf tomorrow. Right? So with this, we gotta finish this. All right, so today's daf is Kuf Ayin Vav 176, and we are picking up on Kuf Ayin Hey Amud Beis. So we'll say pretty much we left off at the Gemara yesterday, but we did the sheet of Ula. So remember again, we're doing an interesting machlokes over about Shibuda Da'oraisa. How do we understand when, let's say again, Ruvain lends Shimon money? So again, as we know, so loan, halachic loans 101 is that when you loan someone money, that creates a lien against their property. What is the nature of that lien? So Ula paskind Shibuda Da'oraisa. Mid-da'oraisa, whenever you lend money, whether you lend money in a shtar, whether you lend money verbally, any loan creates a shibud. Any loan creates a lien against property. The only reason why Chazal said that if you loan without a document, you loan verbally, that there is no shibud, is in order not to put purchasers at a disadvantage, right? Because if somebody goes ahead and purchases, right? So that was Ula, fine. So now we're up to Rabbah. Rabbah Amar, Dvar Torah, Echad Mila B'Shtar, so we'll say we're on Kuf Ayin Hey Beis 175b, probably about 20 lines up on the bottom. Rabba says, Dvar Torah echad malva b'shtar ve'echad malva al peh, inu gova elam in achasav and echorin. Rabba says no. Rabba says in reality, whenever you loan money, so really, you can only collect from unencumbered property. You cannot collect from encumbered property. What's the reason for that? My time. Shibuda lav daraisa. Rabba holds that a lien against property is not daraisa, it's midrabanan. Biblically, there is no lien against property. So if that's the case, says Rabba, that biblically there is no lien created against encumbered property, then why did the rabbi, or against any property, then why did the rabbi say that if you loan with a document, that Allah Alamaisi you could collect even from encumbered property? In order not to close the door in front of borrowers. Now, as Rabbi will say, remember, in general, when you're lending money from a halachic perspective, so already again, you can't lend with interest. This is Hilchos Ribbis, Smichas Chaver, Monday night. It's absolutely fantastic. Right? So already as it is, you can't charge interest. So if I can't charge interest, and also there's no lien against property, it's a hard sell. You're gonna close the door. You're gonna stymie the loan market, as people aren't going to want to lend money. So therefore, again, halacha l'maisa, we see at least if you loan with a document, your malva bishtar, then you get a lien against all property. Malva al nami. So if that's the case, that it's in order to encourage and to facilitate loans, then why not even say that a verbal loan should generate a lien against property? Hasam less le kala. No, because in that case, we'll say again, where halacha l'maisa again is a milva al peh, we have a verbal loan, there's no kol. So because there's no kol, ultimately, again, you can't do it. The Rabba really says. So therefore, I will say, what we are left with is a fundamental machlokes between Ula and Rabba. Ula says, Shibuda d'oraisa, the concept of a lien against property is a d'oraisa concept. And in reality, it should devolve upon all properties for all loans. The rabbis went ahead and only did it by milva al bishtar, they lifted it by milva al peh. Fine. Rabbi, on the other hand, holds shibuda lav doraisa. There is no concept of a lien against property. There's no encumbrance on property mid doraisa. The only reason the rabbis made a lien when it's in a shtar is in order not to close the door to lenders. Okay, or not to borrowers, I should say. So the Gemara says as follows: the Rabbi really say this. V'ha Amar Rabba gavu karka yesh lo maos. Gavu karka yeshlo, gavu maos einlo. So we'll say this is actually a very interesting case. Take a look at the Rashbam for just a moment. Umi Amar Rabba shibuda lav daraisa. The Rabba really hold that shibuda is not daraisa. V'ha Amir Parak Yishnochlim shalchu mitam bechar notal pi shnayim b'milva. So we'll say, remember again. Interestingly enough, one of the things we've learned. Remember again, we spent a lot of time on Yerusha. A bechor, a firstborn son, gets a double portion. What does he get a double portion in? Muchzak and not roi. Right? He only gets a double portion in property that is considered to be owned by the estate and not property that is, what's the word? Roi. Due to the estate. Thank you. Right? It's only property that is owned by the estate and not property that is due to the estate. So the Gemara says over here something interesting. So let's say again Yaakov dies, he leaves behind two sons, Reuven and Shimon. Reuven is a bechar. So now Reuven, it's when that debt becomes collectible, if the debt is secured by property, then Reuven gets pi shnayim, double portion of that. If it's not secured by property, in other words, it's only money that's repaid, he doesn't get pi shnayim. What do you see about that? What do you see? You see from here that it must be that the lien against property is a d'oraisa lien. And therefore it turns out that because that lien existed even when Yaakov was alive, that lien makes the loan like muchzak, and therefore the bechar gets pi shnayim in it. So that would seem to indicate that shibuda d'oraisa. Yet Rabbi just said before that shibuda d'rabanan. So what's going on over here? So maybe you'll say, no problem, just switch around the positions. Maybe it's really Rabba who holds shibuda d'oraisa and Ula who holds shibuda d'rabanan. I v'ha amar Ula dvar Torah balchov dina b'ziburis. But that's not true because Ula himself is on record as saying that mid d'oraisa, a balchov, a creditor is entitled to collect from ziburis. So remember again. So now, as much as Ula is saying that a creditor only gets to collect from inferior grade property, what he is saying is that a creditor always has a lien against property, which would then indicate that halacha l'maisa shibuda d'oraisa. Elo Rabba Taima dibnei ma'arava ka'amar v'leilo srili. Rather, I will say in this case over here before about the loan, Rabba was not espousing his own opinion. Rabba was espousing the opinion of the Jews of Eretz Yisrael, of the Rabbanim of Eretz Yisrael, but he himself did not hold that way. So I will say, so therefore we are left fundamental machlokes. And by the way, this is actually a tremendous machlokes. A tremendous machlokes. What is the nature of an encumbrance? Is encumbrance d'oraisa? Is encumbrance d'Rabbanon? Rabba d'Rabbanon ula d'oraisa. Okay, hold on. We're going to get to halacha l'maisa. Rabbi Shmuel knows Rabbi. So Rabbi and Shmuel both say the following: Milva alpeh in a gova lo min ha'yarshim v'lo min ha'lekuchos. If you make a verbal loan, right, which means again, Ruvain lends Shimon money, and halacha l'maisa again, but alpeh not with the shtar. Then what's the halacha? Ina gova lo min ha'yarshim v'lo min ha'lekuchos. So ultimately, again, you cannot collect that debt from Yarshim, from Yisomim, right? From an estate. Now, so whenever you see Yarshim, what does that mean? What does that mean? It means Yisomim who are Kitanim, right? So you can't collect from the estate until they reach the age of majority, then you can litigate it out. Nor can you collect that debt from property that has been sold after the date of the loan. My timer, what's the reason for that? Shibud alav daraisa, because Rav and Shmuel hold like Rabbah that Shibud is not daraisa. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shimon, and Lakish, the Armi Tarvayu, Milva Alpeh, Gova Beimin Ayarshim, Beimin Al Kuchos. On the other hand, Rabbi Yochanan and Lakish hold that even a verbal loan can be collected from Yarshim or from the Kuchos. What's the reason for that? My taima shibuda d'oraisa. Ultimately, again, because they hold shibuda d'oraisa like ula. So Rabbi say, you see what's happening over here. You feel it, right? You feel it. Something big is happening. How do I know something big is happening? Because the Gemara is stacking the opinions, right? We've got the Tanoim, we've got the Amoraim, and now we see how this is really potentially blowing up into a major machlokes over here. So the Gemara says, Reza Kasha, Hachofer Bar B'Shasam. This is a very interesting case. Ruvain digs a pit in Rosh Hashanah. I was saying, by the way, it's really beautiful to do this because this is back to our Baba Kama days. This is back to Baba Kama. When did we do Baba Kama? How long ago? Probably close to a year ago now, right? Close to a year ago. So I'll say very exciting. So Ruvain digs a pit in Rosh Hashanah. Yeah, so good. Ruvain digs a pit in Rosh Hashanah, and what happens? The Nafa alav shar v'hargo. Interesting. So remember, Ruvain does something illegal by digging a pit in Rosh Hashanah. What happens? As he's digging a pit in Rosh Hashanah, an ox falls into the pit and kills Ruvain. There's a lot of takeaways from this, right? But on the most basic level, don't dig a pit in Rosh Hashanah. So again, it kills him. What's the halacha? Pater. So obviously, the owner of the shar is pater, right? Why is the owner of the shar pater? But remember again, we had a principle. We had a principle, right? Kala mishane yado ala tachtona. Whenever you go ahead and you do something deviant, right? You do something illegal, you lose to a certain degree any of your halachic rights. So Ruvain dug a pit illegally. The ox falls on him and goes ahead and kills him. Halacha l'maisa, the owner of the shar is pater. Okay? Not only that, elo shem meis hashar. Oh, watch this. Let's say the shar falls into the pit. Not only does the shar kill Ruvain, but what happens? What happens if the shar dies? Yarshe balabar chayavim l'shalim demei shar lebailov. Very interesting. Ruvain's inheritors, Ruvain who dug the pit, his yarshim, his inheritors, are obligated to pay back the owner of the shar. Okay? So what says the Gemara says, so what do you see from here? Look at the Rashbam. Yarshe bal habar chayavim l'shalim alma malva al peh so what says, this is very interesting. So now what do you see from here? Essentially, when the shar falls in, right, kills Ruvain, and then it dies. So essentially the Gemara is looking at this debt that Ruvain's estate owns as a malva alpa, as a verbal loan. And yet you see that what? That halacha l'maisa is enforceable even from Yarshim. So that would seem to indicate a concept of shibuda d'araisa. Rabbi Loi. So the Gemara says, no, not necessarily. Am Rabbi Loi, Am Rav Bisha Amad B'din. No, the case over here is where the case was adjudicated. Rashbam says, the Maisa Beizin Kimilva B'shtar Dami. This case was adjudicated in court. And therefore the court ruled that ultimately, again, the owners of the Yarshim of Ruvain are obligated to pay back the value of the ox. And therefore, because it's a Ma'aseh Beis Din, it's as if it's written in a document. The Gemara went on, what are you talking about? It says that Ruvain died. No, the case over here actually is a situation where halacha l'maisa, Ruvain was made into a treifa. So he didn't die yet. He was just mortally wounded by the ox falling on him. Mace the kavro, to which the Gemara says, but it says that he died. Right? He died because the ox buried him in the pit. So the Gemara says, we're talking about a case where the judges were literally sitting at the edge of the pit and adjudicated this case at the edge of the pit. There again, I'll say the idea over here is, because it's a case of a court adjudicating the situation, it becomes a milva b'shtar, not a milva b'peh. Okay, alpeh. Top of Kufayin Vav, 176. Last daf. Amar Papa, Hilchasa, Malva alpeh, government ayarshim, and a government alakuchos. The halacha l'maisa is, Papa says that when you go ahead and write a verbal loan, the halacha is you could collect from yarshim, you have the ability to collect from the estate, ve'ina government alakuchos, but you cannot collect from sold properties. Government Yarshim, why are you able to collect from an estate? Kadesh lo tino deles bifnei lavin, in order not to close the door in front of lenders. And both say, now why? What's that issue? That issue is very simple. That issue, halacha l'maisa, is that remember, when a person lends money, a person needs to know they're going to be able to collect even if the borrower dies. If a person knows that if the borrower dies, I can't collect, then halach l'maisa, again, we run into a real problem that people aren't going to want to lend money. So therefore, even if you lend alpeh without a document, you have the ability to collect from yarshim. But you can't collect from purchasers. The less they call. You can't collect from purchasers. Why? Because that would be unfair to the purchaser, right? If Reuven lent Shimon money, and subsequently, again, after the loan, and let's say they lent verbally, right? Reuven lent it alpeh, and then afterwards Reuven sold the property to Levi. It's unfair in the event that Reuven defaults for Shimon to go and collect from Levi. Why? Levi had no way to protect himself, right? Levi did his title search. And because the loan was undocumented, therefore, again, Levi has no choice. He has no ability. So therefore, on one hand, we want to protect everyone. We want to allow, ultimately, again, the lender to collect from the estate. And therefore, again, he gets paid. On the other hand, we want to go ahead and protect the purchasers because they had no way of knowing about this debt. So I'll say, halacha l'maisa, how do we paskin? Because this is a big one. Shibuda d'oraisa or shibuda d'rabbanan. How do we paskin? The Rama paskins. Get ready for it. Hilchos malva v'lova. Parak yud aleph halacha dalid. The Rambam writes, Kol milva b'shtar gova osam min hayarshim min alakuchos k'mo she'izbar. When you lend with a document, right? You lend with in writing. So the halacha is you could collect both from yarshim as well as from purchasers. You could collect from everyone. Milva al peh, if you lend verbally without a document, gova min hayarshim, you can collect from the estate, but you cannot collect from purchasers, right? And the reason for that is because purchasers had no way of protecting themselves because they didn't know about the existence of this loan. And the Rambam paskins, shekol nichse halova tachas shibud hamalve minat Torah. The Rambam paskins, shibuda d'oraisa. Shibuda d'oraisa. So again, just to understand what that means is anytime you lend money, anytime I lend money to Ruvain, b'd'oraisa, Ruvain's property is encumbered by that debt. Now, I will say what that should mean is, in the event of default, I could collect, or death, I collect from the estate, or I collect from purchasers. The only reason Chazal said that if it's a verbal loan, I can't collect from purchasers, is only its buyer protection. It's buyer protection. The purchasers had no way of knowing about this debt, therefore it would be unfair to allow me to collect from it, even though technically I'm entitled. So again, halacha l'maisa, shibuda d'oraisa. Rabbi says a tremendous Moshe Haskell on this also. You know, what does it mean? Not only halacha l'maisa do we paskin shibuda d'oraisa, but ultimately again hashkafa l'maisa. What is hashkafa l'maisa? Shibuda. You know, in life, often we feel ourselves like enslaved and ensnared to a lot of things, right? A person feels a shibud to a lot of things in life. In reality, There's only one thing in life you should really feel a true shibud, right? A true, the word isn't enslavement, because there's a better word, a true encumbrance to. There's only one real shibud in life, and that is Doraisa, the Torah. That's what a Yid should feel an encumbrance to. There's one shibud, and I will say, if you think about it, by the way, everything else comes from that shibud. Well, you'll say to yourself, 1 second, that's not true, I have a family. Right? How can I feel to a shibud? No, understand. If you feel a shibud to Daraisa, to the Torah, everything else comes from that. Because the Torah tells me that I have to be a good father. The Torah tells me that I have to be a good husband. The Torah tells me that I have to make a parnas in order to go ahead and provide for my family. The Torah tells me all the different things I need to do. But a lot of times I will say we find ourselves like meshubad. We find ourselves encumbered. It's a better word than encumbered. Meshubad, I mean, it literally means like enslaved. Right? But we find ourselves encumbered to so many different things, right? People find themselves encumbered to their career. People find themselves encumbered to other people's expectations, to societal norms, to different things, to encumbered to what my friends or my peer group are doing. There's only one shibud for a Yid. There's only one thing I'm encumbered to in this world, and that is Doraisa. That is the Ribono Shel Olam and his Torah. That is my life encumbrance. And if I'm mishabing myself, if ultimately, again, I sublimate myself, give myself over, I allow myself, literally, again, to be an Eved Hashem. That's Shibuda, is Eved. I'm an Eved Hashem, I'm a Shibud. To the Da'araisa, everything positive, everything wonderful, and everything incredible comes from that. Halacha l'maisa and hashkafa l'maisa. Let's go weiter. Let's finish up. Here we go. So, Hotziel of Ksav Yado Shu Chayiv Lo Gov B'Nechasav B'Nechorin. So, let's remember again, the Mishnah then said, let's say again, I lend Ruvain money. And we don't have a typical document, but instead what ends up happening over here is, I have a loan document in Ruvain's handwriting. Right? So Ruvain has a handwritten, right? The document says, right, Silber lent Ruvain $1,000, and it's written in Ruvain's own handwriting. So the halacha is the Mishnah Paskin, that halacha l'maisa, you could go ahead and collect from Nechasim B'Nechorin. Unencumbered property, but not from encumbered property. But it's a shtar. It's true, it is a shtar. But it's a shtar without what? Shtar without what? Shtar without edim. And therefore, because it's shtar without edim, therefore it doesn't have a kol, right? And therefore, because it doesn't have a kol, you can't collect from encumbered property. So, Boimini Rabba Mera Nachman, Rabba Barnos Amir Rav Yochanan, Hochsak Savyadaba Bezdin Mai. So we'll say, but what happens if Bezdin knows Ruvain's handwriting? So, right, Ruvain, I don't know, either Ruvain is a notorious borrower, or just in general, maybe he's also a witness. For witnesses, a lot of stuff. So, bless you. So, point over here is they know his handwriting. So, what about that? So the Gemara says, "My." So we'll say, in other words, the Gemara is saying essentially, does the fact that Beis Din recognizes Ruvain's writing, does this make it like a shtar that has eidos? That's the shaila. Does that make it like a shtar with eidos? Amrlei. No, we'll say again, in order to collect from the chasim mishubadim, in order to collect right from the kuchos, from purchasers, you have to have witnesses. Witnesses create a kol, a general awareness, and therefore again, purchasers would be aware. Even if Beis Din recognizes Ruvain's signature, that still only allows for collection from the chasim b'nei unencumbered property. So Master Rabbi Chama Shlosha Gittin. So Rabbi Chama raises a kasha. So Shlosha Gittin psulin. There are 3 gittin that are pasul. V'mises havlad kasher. So let's remember again from our gittin days. 3 gittin which are pasul, right? But if you married anyway, right? The person you, in other words, essentially, if a woman utilized them, the offspring is still going to be kasher. What are those 3 gittin? Ve'eluhei. Number 1, ksav b'ksav yodo ve'im alav edim. If the get is written in the handwriting of the husband, but there's no witnesses there. There's no witnesses there. So we'll say a very interesting case, right? So in that kind of case, it's clear that the husband wrote it, right? But there's no eidos, there's no witnesses that signed on it. So such a get is kosher, but you really shouldn't use it. But if she did use it, right? Let's say Reuben's married to Rachel, Rachel did use it, technically speaking, the divorce is valid. Or there are witnesses that sign there, but there is no date on it. Or there is a date, but there's only one witness. What's the halacha? So these 3 gittin really are not really fit for use. But if you used it ultimately again, it's kosher. It's kosher. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Lazar says, Afapi she'in alav eidim elashnas lebifnei eidim kosher, v'govem menechasim mishubadim. And Rabbi Lazar says, the truth is, even if there aren't eidim on it, but you gave it in the presence of witnesses, it's kosher. Rabbi Lazar, remember again, that's Rabbi Lazar l'shitaso, because what does Rabbi Lazar hold? Rabbi Lazar holds eidei mesira karsi. That remember again, it's not the witnesses who sign the document that create the effectiveness of the shtar, but rather again, it's the witnesses who see the giving over of the shtar. So Rabbi Lazar goes so far to say that even if you don't have witnesses who signed on the shtar, but you only have witnesses who witness the giving over of the shtar, halacha l'maisa, the get is kasha, you could collect. What do you mean you could collect? Who's collecting anything? She collects her ksuva, right? Or again, I will say, remember again, I want to point out also, whatever halachos apply to gittin also apply to what? Regular shtaras. Right, regular shtaras. We had this not so long ago. So then we're going to Chas Shuadim. So we'll say so again. So what do you see from here? Look at the Rashbam for just a moment. It's right across. Go Chas Shuadim. Kilomar v'im shtar milvahu osa shtar akasa b'ksav yado ve'ein bo edim ela shemasu b'pnei edim. Go Chas Shuadim. So we'll say so again. Here it is. What are you seeing over here? You have a shtar over here that is written in the handwriting of the husband. There are no witnesses on the shtar. And yet, despite all of that, halacha l'maisa, you can collect from nechasim mishabadim. This contradicts what we just said before, to which the Gemara says, no, shiny hasam, dimishas ksiva, hu dishabed nafshe. That case is different, right? That case is different. Why? Because we'll say in this type of situation where halacha l'maisa, again, it was clear from the beginning that Ruvain was not going to use Eidim, but rather, again, he was only going to use Eidim Mesira, so he's mishabed himself. He obligated himself in this level of obligation from the beginning of the writing of the shtar. Take a look at the Rashbam. Shiny hasam de b'shas. Ksiva hu deshabed nafshe. Kishenichtav hashtar nichtav kidei lemasra b'fnei Eidim. Shu Eidim Mesira makom Eidi chasima. Hilchach kevan Rabbi Lazar Eidim Mesira karsi kilu nechtamu b'soch hashtar dami. So that case is different, because since it's relying on Rabbi Lazar, so therefore again, Eidi Mesira Karsi, therefore he's mishabed himself from the beginning, and it's as if there is testimony in the shtar itself. Avalanan mi boilan bahotzi alav ksav yado ba'alma sheshmo shalav. Rabbi say, but essentially the Rashan goes on to say you can't apply this back to our case. Remember again, what was our initial question? Our initial question was, Mishnah said that if Reuben lends Shimon money, and you have a shtar, right, the shtar is written in Shimon, the borrower's handwriting. So what's the halacha in such a situation like that? The halacha is that ultimately, again, Reuben can collect from Shimon, but only from the chasim b'nei chorin, unencumbered property. Well, Gemara asked, what happens if halacha l'maisa, the Beis Din recognizes Shimon's handwriting? Does that make it as if there's testimonies, witnesses signed? So the Gemara wanted to bring a raya over here, but Kamashmal, this case is different, right? The get case is different, and halacha l'maisa, the way we paskin is, even if Beis Din recognized the handwriting of the handwriting of Shimon the borrower, that's fine. In other words, it's a valid document. Reuven, the lender, could collect from unencumbered property, but he cannot collect from encumbered property. Beautiful. All right, Jabosai, last piece. Well, no, second last piece. So next, so supposed to remember again that the Mishnah made a distinction between a guarantor who signs before the signatures and after the signatures. Right? So the Gemara wanted to suggest that essentially a guarantor who signs before the signatures, that's a proper guarantor. But a guarantor who signs after the signatures, not really a proper guarantor. Now, I shouldn't say it like that. The Mishnah said that if the guarantor signs after the signatures of the witnesses, you can only collect from the nechasim b'nei chorin of the guarantor, not from the chasim mishubadim. So infer from that if he signs before the signatures, you could collect even from the chasim b'nei chorin. Now we'll say, ultimately again, that was the position. Sorry, mishubadim. Thank you. Now remember again, that's how Rabbi Shmuel paskind. Ben Nanas disagreed. We'll come to Ben Nanas in just a little bit. So the Gemara says as follows: Amarav, kodim chitim shtaris govim minechasim mishubadim, lachar chitim shtaris govim minechasim minechorin. So here it is. So Rav says, if the guarantor signs before, if the guarantor signs before the signatures of the witnesses, you could collect from the chasim mishubadim. But if he only signs after the signatures of the witnesses, you could only collect from the chasim minechorin. Zimnin Amarav, yet other times Rav said, afilu kodim chitim shtaris eno gove ela minechasim minechorin. So I'll say, but yet other times Rav said that even if the guarantor signed before the signatures of the witnesses, you still could only collect from unencumbered property. Kashya derava derav. Rav is contradicting himself. Which one is it? Rabbi says it's incredible. Lo kashya, it's not a contradiction. Hadikasev be ploni aref. Hadikasev be uploni aref. Wow. They will say everything hinges on a vav. What does this mean? So let's play this out. Reuven is lending Shimon $1,000. So in the document it says, I Reuven, I'm lending Shimon $1,000. So I will say, now watch this. If in the shtar it says, and Levi is a guarantor for this loan, and then you have the signatures of the witnesses, then halacha l'maisa, then Levi is on the hook, even for his own nechasim mishubadim. If, on the other hand, it just says, I, Reuven, lend Shimon $1,000, and then it says, Levi is a guarantor for this loan without the and, without the vav, then ultimately, again, halacha l'maisa, then it's true, Levi is a guarantor, but Levi is only a guarantor up to what? His nechasim b'nei chor, not his nechasim mishubadim. Essentially, what Rav is suggesting is, you need a hook. You need something directly connecting the guarantorship to the transaction outlined above it. All you need is a vav, right? Ve. All you need is that hook. An and. In other words, documental juxtaposition. Yes, that is a brand new phrase. Right? Documental juxtaposition is not enough. You need something that actually, again, hooks the guarantor to the transaction above it. So therefore, again, interestingly enough, what Rav says is having the guarantor sign before the signatures of the witnesses is enough to create an obligation. Remember again, we'll say there is an obligation, but it only obligates him al his nechasim b'nei chorin. If you want the guarantor to be obligated even for his nechasim mishubadim, you need that hook. You need that and, which again documentally goes ahead and links him to the actual transaction itself. Incredible. So the Gemara says as follows. Rabbi Yochanan says no. Rabbi Yochanan disagrees with Rav. Rabbi Yochanan says no. The way a guarantor works, Rabbi Yochanan holds that a guarantor's obligation is always capped at his nechasim b'nei chorin. That's it. A guarantor is never on the hook for nechasim mishubadim. Massive Rava. So Rava raised the kasha. So Rava said, this is actually a very interesting case. So Rava brings out the following question. Rava says, so let's say again, you have a document, right? So again, a get. Reuven's divorcing his wife Rachel. So in the document it reads like this, right? Reuven is divorcing Rachel, and then in the document itself it says, and witnesses, do me a favor, when you go and you deliver this get to Rachel, say hello to my old friend Shimon. Right? Because again, Reuven lives in Tel Aviv, Rachel lives in Yerushalayim. So Reuven tells the witnesses, my old childhood friend lives in Yerushalayim. Do me a favor, when you deliver the get, go say hello to Shimon. And he writes that in the document itself. Go say hello to my childhood. It's awkward, I agree. Right. But Lamaisa, let's say, sometimes it's all about consolidation of resources, right? Why spend money on the additional stamp, right? If you could just go ahead and have the witnesses go ahead and give over that shalom aleichem. So now watch this. So the Gemara says as follows. The Gemara says, so here's the issue. If you have witnesses sign right below that shalom aleichem over there, or that instruction to give shalom to Shimon, then the get is pasul. Why? Because what are we concerned about? We're concerned that the witnesses are signing on the greeting. Signing on the greeting and not signing on the get. So Rabbi Avo said as follows. Rabbi Avo said, the way I understood it was as follows. Sha'alo pasal, visha'ilo kasher. Or says, she'ilu pasal, visha'ilo kasher. Now say everything depends on the vav. If you write in the get, I, Reuven, am divorcing my wife Rachel, right? And the next section, please make sure to inquire about the welfare of my friend Shimon, and then signatures of the witnesses. That's going to validate the get. Because it's possible that the witnesses are just signing on the greeting piece. But if it says and, if you have, again, the documental hook, right, which again connects the greeting to the get itself, I, Reuven, am divorcing Rachel, go deliver this get to my wife, and please give greetings to my friend Shimon. So the documental hook, allows us to understand that when the witnesses sign, they're signing both on the get as well as on the greeting. Hachanami, the kasev ploni aref. Iachi Hainu de Rav. So we'll say if that's the case, saying the same thing as Rav. V'chein, so the Gemara says you're right. Ema v'chein Am Rabbi Yochanan. So we'll say Saloch l'maisa. Interestingly enough, the Gemara is passing like Rav, and therefore again, essentially, it is not enough to have the guarantor sign before the signatures of the witnesses. Rather, what do you need? You need a documental hook. So in other words, it has to say, right? I Reuven am lending Shimon $1,000, and Levi is the guarantor. And then afterwards, the signatures of the witnesses. Beautiful. All right, so we'll say last piece. Maisa, ubalifnei Rabbi Shmuel. So we'll say, remember again, after this, we had the Machlokes Yerushalayim Benanas. What did Benanas hold? So Benanas holds that halacha l'maisa, the only time that a guarantor is on the hook is when it is clear that the guarantor was the reason for the debt. Right? So, for example, in Benanas' example, the only time that a guarantor is obligated is when, let's say, for example, Levi says to Reuven, lend money to Shimon, and I'll guarantee it. So it's clear that the loan is being made because the guarantor is guaranteeing it. Otherwise, Benanas says there is no obligation. He gives the example of I walk into the marketplace and what happens? I see Reuven holding Shimon in a chokehold, and I say, Reuven, stop. I'll guarantee the debt. Benanas said, would anyone say that that's a guarantorship? Of course not. I'm just trying to get him out of the chokehold. So this is the fundamental machlokes, Benanas and Rabbi Shmuel. So here we go. Says the Gemara. Maisu balaf Rabbi Shmuel. Amar Rabbi Baruch Avraham, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Afa pi shakilis Rabbi Shmuel's Benanas. Even though, again, I will say, remember again, that Rabbi Shmuel praised Benanas, right? Remember again, how did he praise Benanas? He said, if you want to learn Dinei Mamanas, right? Dinei Mamanas is the most incredible thing. And if you want to learn Dinei Mamanas, who should you go to? Make sure to learn under Benanas. Nevertheless, halacha kimoso. The halacha is like Rabbi Shmuel and not like Benanas. Not like Benanas. So we'll say, now what does that mean? The halacha is that as long as the guarantors are signed in the guarantor is signed in the document before the signatures of the witnesses, and now as we just said before, and there's a hook connecting the guarantorship to the piece of the document before, and you're good to go. So we don't pass, even though Rabbi Shmuel praised Benanas, we don't pass in like Benanas. B'chanuk mali Rabbi Shmuel. What about the case of the chokehold? This is important to know. Right? So what about the case of the chokehold? Right? I walk into the shuk. I see Reuven is holding Shimon in a chokehold. He's saying, pay me. Right? And I say, Reuven, let him go. I'll guarantee the loan. What would am I now a guarantor for that loan or not? So here we go. So the Gemara says, Tashma dam Rabbi Yaakov am Rabbi Yochanan chaluk haya Rabbi Shmuel af bechanuk. No, Rabbi Shmuel disagreed even in the case of Chanuk, and Rabbi Shmuel would actually hold that the guarantor is chayiv. Incredible, right? That even though again it's clear, why am I saying to Reuven, I'll guarantee the debt? I'm trying to save Shimon. That's really what's happening over here. But nevertheless, Rabbi Shmuel said, I'm going to be obligated as a guarantor. So the Gemara says, okay, halacha k'moso. So do we pass in that way or not? So Tashma dechi asar Rabbi Yochanan chaluk hay Rabbi Shmuel af dechanuk. Rabbi Shmuel disagreed with Benanas even in the case of the chokehold, and Rabbi Shmuel would say, even in that case, I would be obligated as a guarantor. V'halacha k'moso af bechanuk. And the halacha follows Rabbi Shmuel, even in the case, ultimately, again, of the chokehold. Am Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, Chanuk, the kanam yado, mishtabed. Said, no. Well, so listen to this. This is fascinating. So comes along and read the same name, Shmuel says like this. In the chokehold case, if I did a kinyan, so just to clarify this, right? So I walk into the shuk, Reuven's got Shimon in a chokehold. Clearly, I'm using my deep analytical skills and recognize that Shimon owes Reuven money, hence the chokehold, right? So I come along and I say, Reuven, leave him alone, I'll guarantee it. So Shmuel comes along and says, that works as long as I do a kinyan, like a kinyan sudar, with the lender to say that I'm going to guarantee. So what do you see from here? Michlal, da'ariv ba'ama lo bai kinyan. So we can infer from this that in general, a guarantor does not require a kinyan. Upliga de Rav Nachman, and this argues on Rav Nachman. So we'll say, this is another interesting idea. In order to become a guarantor, do you need some type of kinyan or not with the lender? And this argues on Rav Nachman. Why Rabbi say the Gemara says the Amar Rav Nachman Paskins or Amud Beis. Rabbi say last Amud Arev the Beis Din Hudelo by Kinyan, Haba Alma by Kinyan. So I will say normally it's only an Arev, only a guarantor, who becomes a guarantor in the presence of Beis Din, who does not require a Kinyan. But in general, I will say otherwise, in order to become a guarantor, and for that guarantorship to be binding, you do need a Kinyan. The Hilchus, I will say, what's the halacha? Arev b'shas matan ma'os lo by Kinyan, achar matan ma'os by Kinyan. So we'll say this is a very interesting distinction. If you became an Arev, if you became a guarantor, at the time that the loan was made, if you become a guarantor at the time that the loan was made, then halacha l'maisa, there is no need for a king. In other words, if you're present at the time of the transaction, right? So you are a guarantor at the time of the transaction. Again, I will say, with all the other caveats, you're a guarantor at the time of the transaction. You're signing before the signatures of the witnesses. There's a documental hook linking your guarantorship to the actual part of the loan document. If you have all of that, kinyan is not necessary to formalize and to concretize your guarantorship. However, achar matan ma'os baiking. This is very important. That will say, now remember again, you can technically introduce a guarantor after the loan was made. Right? Reuven lends Shimon the money, and then later on Reuven's a little bit nervous, or Shimon decides to get a guarantor. You could introduce a guarantor after the transaction has already been made. But in order to do that, what has to happen? In that case, the guarantor has to be makabel kinyan, which makes sense since he's not part of the document. Right? He's not part of the original transaction. In order to introduce him, you need something with halachic teeth. You'll require a kinyan. Arev the Beis Din lo by kinyan. I will say in all circumstances, a person who becomes a guarantor from a transaction that's happening in Beis Din never requires a kinyan. Why? The bahiyano the mehemen le gamer u'mishabed le. Shabbos is actually quite beautiful. Quite beautiful. Why? Because halacha l'maisa, if I'm a guarantor in a transaction in Beis Din, what does that show? That Beis Din trusts me. That Beis Din trusts me. So because Beis Din trusts me, again, that is enough for me to fully commit myself to the guarantorship without having to do anything with the kinyan. In other words, the kinyan is there in order to ensure that the guarantor is really on the hook. If I'm in Beis Din, and Beis Din is trusting me to be a guarantor, so that is enough. That is enough that I fully commit myself, and there's absolutely no need for any additional kinyan. I will say it happens to be that halacha l'maisa in the chokehold case, the way the Rambam paskins is that halacha l'maisa, the guarantor is not on the hook. That's the way the Rambam, which again I think is logical and intuitive because halacha l'maisa again is clear. I'm only doing in order to go ahead and save Reuven. And I will say now, amazingly enough, we also paskin like Rabbi Shmuel and not like Ben Nanas. That halacha l'maisa again essentially. So again, a guarantor need not do a kinyan if he's becoming a guarantor at the time of the transaction itself. Right? That doesn't have to happen. The only time he requires kinyan if he's being introduced later on. And halacha l'maisa becomes a guarantor in Beis Din. Never requires a kinyan. Needs to be signed. The guarantor needs to be written in before the signatures of the witnesses and needs the documental hook in order to make it binding. I will say, just to close out the Masechta, the last Mishnah ended off with a really beautiful idea that harotze shiyasok b'dinei mamanas. I'm sorry, if a person, harotze shiyachkim, if a person wants to become wise, yasok b'dinei mamanas. A person should go ahead and really involve himself in monetary law. Right? That's the ability to become exceptionally wise. What's the pshat? Why don't you say, Harotz Shiachim, I want to become wise? Learn Hilchos Shabbos, right? Learn Hilchos Kashrus. I don't know, why Dinei Mamanis? Suppose I saw a beautiful idea from the Shem Shmuel, the Sakachana Rebbe. And he says like this is incredible. He says, what does Dinei Mamanis require you to do? He says, Dinei Mamanis, Shtei Hamamonos Shal Yisroel Heim. Right? When you have Dinei Mamanis, what's Dinei Mamanis? There's a pile of money over here, right? Or there's a financial claim. And there's two Yidden, there's two Jews, right? So you have Reuven and you have Shimon. Utzrichim lahakir. And you have to try to figure out, how to distinguish Mamon ze lemi hu shayach. Who owns the money, right? So there's one bucket of money or one claim. Who gets it? Lezeh ha-Yehudi or the Chavero. Does it go to Reuven? Does it go to Shimon? Zeu chachma gidola lahotzi dvarim ne'elamim. So the Shem Yisroel says something amazing. Dinei Mamanis requires a very specific skill. Havdalah. Havdalah. The ability to be mavdil. The ability to distinguish, does the money belong to Ruvain? Does the money ultimately again belong to Shimon? So Dinei Mamonos requires the ability to distinguish between two things that look so similar. Right? Ruvain and Shimon come into Beis Din. Ruvain looks like a great guy. Shimon looks like a great guy. Ruvain makes a compelling claim. Shimon makes a compelling claim. And what do I have to try to figure out? I have to figure out how to be mavdil. How to be mavdil. Says the Shem Yishmuel something amazing. What is the greatest skill that we possess in life? The ability to be mavdil. Havdalah. The Gemara Maseches Brachos brings down that the first thing we do on Masei Shabbos, right? First thing we do on Masei Shabbos, in the bracha of Ata Chonen LaAdam Das, we say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you give us wisdom. How does that wisdom manifest itself? Where does Havdalah happen in Shemona Esrei? Ata Chonantanu, in Ata Chonen LaAdam Das. Ultimately, again, the greatest ability, the greatest gift we have is the ability to distinguish between different things. So Dinei Mamonos represents this ability to engage in the incredible process of Havdalah. Now, once you ask yourself, okay, it's very nice. But once you have Dinei Mamonos, once you know in financial law how to do Havdalah, how to make a distinction between Reuven and Shimon, then I can take that skill set and I can bring it to the rest of life. Because what is life all about? Life is all about Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'chol, ben Or l'choshech, ben Yisroel la'amim. Life is all about the ability to make sometimes very, very nuanced distinctions. What's right and what's wrong? What's holy, what's impure? What's kosher, what's treif? What's light and what's dark? That's what life is all about. I will say, more often than not in life, the big decisions we have to make is not really between two things that are polar opposites. But it's often in daily life navigating those nuanced decisions. What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want of me? What's the real proper path for me to take? What's the right decision to do? What's going to get me where I really need to get to in life? What life needs more than anything, what a successful Yid needs more than anything, is the power and the ability to be a Havdalah Yid. And how do you become a Havdalah Yid? Harotze sheyachkim. If you want to fine-tune your Havdalah skills, Yasok B'dinei Mamonos. Then engage in financial law. Because if you do that, if you do Dinei Mamonos, then you'll learn that art of nuanced distinction. And if you learn it here, you can take it with you to the rest of life. I will say it has been a tremendous zechus and privilege, and just like it's felt like one big chasana, like one big simcha, 176-day chasana. Right? Just every day exciting, every day beautiful, every day incredible. And it's been the greatest zechus in the world to do it with all of you, to our chevra on Zoom, to the chevra that's here. It's nothing better. It's literally every morning is having the opportunity to experience Olam Haba in Olam Haza. I think in Olam Haba they're a bit more awake than we are. Right? But nevertheless, again, it's a shtick Olam Haba in Olam Haza. I will say tomorrow morning starts Sanhedrin. We're going to go Baruch Hashem literally again. We just saw. What did we just see in the Gemara? It's that Yelech Mechayil El Chayil. From multitudes to multitudes, accomplishment to accomplishment. This is a dramatic and beautiful accomplishment. Tomorrow we start Sanhedrin. Tonight everyone is invited. Our real Siyum Yahrzeit Hashem will be actually our last Shabbos here in the shul, which will be Shabbos January 18th. That'll be our Gala Siyum. We're going to close out this beautiful Beis HaKnesses with a Gala Siyum Yahrzeit Hashem. But tonight everyone is invited here to the shul. A little L'chaim Siyum tonight at 8:15, Ma'ariv at 9 o'clock. We're going to celebrate together. I will say, we'll celebrate Basra tomorrow, tonight. Tomorrow morning, Sanhedrin. Committed, stark, ready to go, well-rested. Whether you get enough sleep or not, we're going to be well-rested. That's a declarative statement. We're going to grab Sanhedrin by the horns. We're going to Am Yisroel Hashem, make it our new best friend. We thank Bava Basra. We'll say it's so important. Bava Basra, thank you. Thank you. You have been wonderful to us. You have taken care of us. You've loved us. You've been by our side, right? No matter what was happening in my life. We'll say, a lot of us, I'm sorry, I know we're over time, but I'll just finish up. A lot of us, sometimes you can't always count on your friends. But you could always count on your Gemara. He's always going to be there. and he's always going to love you, and he's never going to judge you, and he's always going to be willing to learn with you no matter what else is happening in your life. So we thank Bava Basra for being such a beautiful and loving and accepting companion for these last 176 days. We appreciate him for everything that he's given to us, and Am Yisroel Hashem, we look forward to making a new friend Masech Sanhedrin tomorrow. Say Shkoyach and Mazel Tov.